really hope that we'll have time. I thought the moderator yesterday did a formidable job in keeping heads of state to 3 or 4 minutes, so I request all of my panelists to follow that example. I will try and follow his example and be tough but fair with everyone in terms of time, so we have a chance for some interaction. So from right to left, we have Jairo Acuna Alfaro, who is at the UNDP. UNDP is one of OGP's key multilateral partners. Jairo is leading a lot of work around Goal 16, monitoring and indicators of the SDGs. We have Manish Bhatna, co-chair of OGP, vice president of the World Resources Institute, aka one of my many bosses. We have Tomas Severino from Cultura Ecologica, and is the co-chair of the Mexico Steering Committee at the moment of OGP as a domestic process in OGP. We have Minister Arely Gomez from Función Pública, also on the steering committee of OGP, and the previous co-chair, two co-chairs ago, of the Open Government Partnership, one of the founders. On my left, we have Minister Tea Sulukiani, Minister of Justice from Georgia, a co-chair of OGP with France and on the steering committee. We have Pak Sioto, the regent of Bojonegoro, one of OGP's 15 subnational pioneers, who's joining us for the first time at an OGP summit, I think. And we have Paki Anwar, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President of Indonesia, previously the lead Indonesian negotiator on the SDGs. So we have a lot of knowledge here. It's not my job to speak for much longer, but I want to start with Minister Arely Gomez. So a year ago, some of you will remember, we had a declaration signed in Mexico by over 50 governments and hundreds of civil society on what links we would make between these two agendas, between the Sustainable Development Agenda and the Open Government Agenda. And what I want to start with, Minister, is just to hear from you, why we did that, why we thought it was important to bring those two agendas together, and how are we doing, and what are the consequences if we fail to really link up the SDGs and OGP?
Okay, en el año 2015 fue un año crucial para la comunidad internacional. Durante la 70 Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas, 193 países acordaron la aprobación de los 17 Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Sin embargo, en ese momento fue cuando empezó el verdadero reto para todos. Los objetivos que aprobamos, los 17 Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, son metas muy ambiciosas que, si logramos cumplir, resolverán algunos de los principales problemas a los que nos enfrentamos como sociedad. Pero no debemos olvidar que, a pesar de los esfuerzos que hicimos en su momento para cumplir con los objetivos del desarrollo del milenio, esto no fue suficiente. Por eso, la pregunta que debemos hacernos es: ¿qué haremos diferente esta vez para lograr cumplir estos objetivos? Y algunos de los retos de la Agenda de 2030 son, primero, lograr una efectiva rendición de cuentas entre gobiernos y ciudadanos respecto de las metas. Y segundo, debemos llevar la discusión más allá de la medición de indicadores y enfocarnos en los planes de acción que nos permitan cumplir con los objetivos. Desde 2011 que creamos el OGP, los principios de gobierno abierto y los planes de acción nacionales se convirtieron en nuevos instrumentos para lograr el efectivo cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030. No está de más recordar esos principios de gobierno abierto. Primero, con participación ciudadana, nos aseguramos de que se atiendan las verdaderas necesidades de la gente, y además de que los ciudadanos se apropien de la Agenda de Desarrollo Sostenible y así no solo exijan resultados, sino que trabajen de la mano sus gobiernos para cumplirlos. En segundo lugar, a través de la rendición de cuentas, garantizamos que los gobiernos cumplamos con nuestros compromisos y podamos identificar las áreas de oportunidad donde debemos de trabajar más fuerte para lograr los objetivos. En tercer lugar, la transparencia es el ingrediente esencial en el monitoreo de los indicadores y gracias a los datos abiertos nos permite explorar y utilizar la información disponible para hacer proyecciones de cumplimiento de los objetivos. Y en cuarto lugar, la innovación y la tecnología son dos herramientas que tienen un gran impacto en la manera que resolvemos nuestros problemas en la actualidad. En el año 2000, cuando nos comprometimos con los objetivos de desarrollo del milenio, vivíamos en un mundo diferente al del día de hoy. Por eso debemos aprovechar los avances tecnológicos para convertirnos en un gobiernos y en ciudadanos más eficientes, responsivos, participativos y efectivos. Como comunidad internacional debemos de trabajar juntos y utilizar plataformas como la Alianza para el Gobierno Abierto para avanzar hacia el cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030. Es cuanto por esto.
Thank you, Minister. And we'll come back on the second round to talk a little bit also about Mexico's linkages in the open government plan that you have. I'd like to next turn to Manish. Can you hear me? Yep. I'd like to next turn to Manish. Manish, yesterday you not only talked about the two global agendas, I think you added a third. You may have even added a fourth. OGP can't do everything, but as you said, without open government, we may not achieve any of these things. I'm thinking practically, how do we take this forward for people in the room? How do we practically link up these agendas so we really see it showing up in the national OGP processes and we really take this forward, not at an abstract level, but in the 75 countries that we now have?
Great. It's a real pleasure to be here. So on this point, so first, 2015 was an unprecedented year in terms of surpassing expectations for what we had. We had three major conferences, summits. We had one on financing for development, we had one on the Sustainable Development Goals, and we had one on climate. And they're all interlinked. And if you look at them as a package, it truly is about a transformation for how we look at our economies and how we look at our societies. I believe that to get success in this integrated agenda, that we need to have deep and serious engagement with the public. We need transparency, we need accountability. These are absolutely essential. But how? I think Joe poses exactly the right question. What does that mean in practice? OGP can't do everything. It needs to do what it does well. But how does it do that in ways that can still support these other changes, these other agendas we need to see? What is quite interesting when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals is that the principles that underpin OGP relate not only to Goal 16, which is the goal for governance, but are embedded across the entire portfolio. So if you look at some of the other goals within the SDGs, Goal 3, ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health care services, including for family planning. Ensure that all girls and boys, Goal 4, complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education. Ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services in upgraded slums. Goal 11. There are so many goals and targets that ultimately depend upon open government in order to actually work effectively. So how do we do this in practice? I think there are two things that we need to do. One is we need to think a little bit about the commitments that we put in national action plans. As we try to connect national action plans to improving people's lives, how do we link commitments to specific targets contained in the SDG agenda? What I just showed you is just a small sample of the many targets that speak directly to the relevance of open government. How do we create those commitments and NAPs that help us actually achieve those particular goals and targets? The second big opportunity is that the implementation of the SDGs is still yet not fully defined in most countries. I think the OGP has a tremendously interesting experience and knowledge of how to translate global kind of principles and commitments into national, concrete implementation plans that are engage the public, that provide information, that create accountability mechanisms. How can we use some of what OGP has learned to help us translate the SDGs into concrete plans? So this is the opportunity, this is the agenda. Really excited we're having this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Manish. So I'll turn now to Minister Tea Sulikiani, Minister of Justice from Georgia. Obviously, access to justice is its own goal in the SDGs under Goal 16. And I know you are actively integrating that into your open government partnership commitments. And maybe you could just help us, to respond to Manish's challenge of moving from global to national, and next we'll go to subnational. But how have you been doing it in Georgia?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here, or to organizers especially. In Georgia, as you all well know, we are at our third action plan within the OGP, and since the SDGs came out, we decided just to look at them and to take some of those goals in our national action plan. So maybe it can sound kind of illusionary, but it's still reality in Georgia that it suffices to think about SDGs in order to have them in our national action plans. That's what we have been doing until now. And when you see, for instance, some of the SDGs where you need to put different countries in a partnership, for instance, SDG 17, OGP is all about that. We have developed within the OGP many kind of partnerships, including peer learning or helping each other, and in the morning we have been discussing different examples how to improve it. So we do see in Georgia that there is nothing very difficult to translate those SDGs on the level of the national action plans. When it comes to which SDGs should be taken, of course, it's a great pleasure to be free to take them on board according to the national priorities, because each country has its own national priorities. So this freedom of being able to translate them in a free manner on the national level is yet another kind of pleasure whilst working on those on linking those two agendas. For instance, just to give you one example of Georgia's, the Sustainable Development Goal, which is about making accessible, strong and functional state institutions at all levels, is one of our priorities right now, and it has been so. It has been so for 3 or 4 years now, and we invented a kind of tool because it's all about tools. Because states at the central level, on the local level, we need tools, because only words do not suffice to be able to change the life of citizens on a day-to-day basis. One of the tools we have right now on the agenda is the so-called community centers. These are small but very unique infrastructures we construct in Georgian villages with at least 2,000 inhabitants. These are small houses which allow the citizens living in those villages, including remote areas, including villages not far from the occupation line, because you know that 20% of the Georgian territory remains occupied by foreign military force. In the mountains, Georgia is a very small country, but very mountainous as well. So we build those houses there, and in those houses we deliver more than 400 public services inside the village. In the same infrastructure, we have possibility, thanks to public and private partnership, to deliver monthly pensions to our elder people, which means automatically that those people do not need to travel to the centers of their municipality, which can take sometimes 4 or 5 hours by bus. It's costly, it's not that easy for a certain age to travel in the end of each month. So they can, inside the village, without leaving the place, take the pension. And for the children, it's very important that within the same house, we allow a computer room, electronic library, physical books, not many because it's we do not have a huge space, but electronic library replacing the physical books, and Wi-Fi and internet. It means that every child of Georgia's in those now 45 villages can access the world and feel as a part of the world and have an access to the state central institutions. And in the end, I would add also that in the same house, we allow the local governance of the village to sit. It means that when you need the central or local government, you go to one place. You do not have to travel. So this is one of the tools. Of course, we do not have time to discuss all the tools Georgia shared from other countries or invented on its own. But this is one of the best tools, I think, which can be shared with others, because in Georgia we thought that big cities are quite well developed in terms of functional institutions, but now the villages need to be developed as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think before this panel, I was really hoping we would use this to have some very specific examples, and one of the priorities of this summit is to encourage much more sharing of practical tools and applications to help us all with implementation. So fantastic, very specific examples to hear on participation in Georgia. I know Paxiotto also has a number of very practical tools of engagement. I think he does public meetings almost weekly with the community. And Bojnagora is also one of our, as I said, 15 pioneers in terms of taking OGP to the local level. Paxiotto, maybe you can give us some more examples.
Yeah, but you know that most of my people and also me and most all my staff government, they doesn't understand what is the SDGs. And they doesn't understand what is the OGP. Yeah, we are, you know that I know OGP and SDGs is after 5 years I'm running the government. But so you can imagine that the people actually doesn't want SDGs. They know it about the open government partnership, but why we take open government partnership value and SDGs as our goal and our target. So imagine that you are living in the region with the 1.3 million people living in pores, with the area is prone of flood and drought. You know that which is the area with his long history of poverty, long history of battle. You know that Bojonegoro Regency is famous with the poverty, not famous with the others. Yeah? So at the times when I'm a campaign, I was found that the government budget very low. The government is doesn't present, absent to the people, and most of people think that the government is corrupt. So 60% people think that government staff is corrupt. And then you know that what is the challenge now? The challenge is as how we need a public trust of the people. That's what's me. And how we can get a support from the people, because we have no plenty money to deliver our public service. So we need a participation, we need a contribution from the people, and we see that the way is open government partnership. At that time, we don't know open government partnership, but we understand at the time that value of a open government partnership, a transparency, accountability, participation, innovation, and IT, that is we need to government to connect with people. So actually, we would like, at the times, we also concern with the global issues. So why we call is, we concern the global issues, but we have been doing for the local prototypes. So what is a partnership? Partnership is between E is academician, NGO, G is government, B is a businessman, C is communities. So the way how we connect with the 4 pillars is, we really try to, this is our value. We very try to implement the transparency, accountability, participation, innovation, and we conduct the value with the dialogic approach instead of debate. You know that the debate prefer us, bring us to more debate, but dialogic is we have to open our mind, open our heart, and open our will. So that is a principle of a partnership. And we use a direct process, distribute, and digital. What is the mission actually? Our mission is building higher mutual trust and a positive impact, because people is only see the result. People doesn't want to see the process. But to be completely implements this process of OGP, as I can show you how we try to implement the open government. This is our journey. In the beginning, at 2008, before OGP launched in the world, we use a dialogic approach. Every Friday afternoon, we invite all the people who are like to come in our town hall meeting. That people just doesn't hesitate to say to anything, to talk anything, and then that is what we call is Friday dialogue. And we use is mobile phone as text message. You know that I give all my people my cellular phone number to all my people, so they have access to me directly than the others. And SMS, Facebook, you know that couple years after that, we engage all local radio. Instead of we are beating the complaint, now we put the complaint, we put aspiration. Even someone that doesn't realize that actually the SMS, they complain, they propose to the government, but we engage them. And you know that after that, we got a learning that I released a Bojonegoro, a Bupati degree, what we call is innovative management based on complaint. And that we take the national platform, Lapor, Sismon, and Open Data, and then and after that, 1 year after that, we employ so many applications to engage the people and to manage our government to deliver the process. And the last, now we are as OGP pioneer for the world. So what is actually the challenge? I would like to show you the challenge. The challenge is transforming from ego to eco, from the selfish to selfish. That is our challenge as a government. But you know that this is but after a moment, the public trust about the process because they see the result. This is our result. You know that last year we had a higher economic development in Indonesia region. And secondly, our ratio Gini index were lowest in East Java. Maybe it is also in Indonesia. And the third is, now we are not the poverty again, the poorest again. We are in the middle rank of poorest in the East Java. And this is in terms of SDGs. Now we try to take SDGs as our platform, and then we going to assess assessment, and we set up the target. This is the public now understanding well our changing from the 2008 to 2015, and now we to accomplish the mission. Because we are one of pioneers, we have to set up the action plan, new action plan. This is our new action plan, 5 action plan. One is data revolution, and the second is about the open data contract. Because we,
yes, I think the SDGs are and the whole agenda, the international agenda, the Paris Agreement, the climate, the financing, the SDGs. It's one of the unique opportunities that we have to articulate national, subnational, regional, sub-regional with what the world community has decided to do. And yes, I agree that last year was a fundamental one, and I agree that this is what we have decided, and that's the opportunity. And it gives us the same excuse to work together, whether you are in a local government or the federal government or CSOs or wherever you are, or international big NGOs. So what we decided in Mexico was to try to align our third action plan with the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we came out with 6 topics that address each one of the SDGs. In our case is the SDG 15 to promote sustainability for land and ecosystems and protection on forests as well. And so for that, we established that we were going to articulate and make publicly available the information that government is already producing in Risk Atlas, information related to big projects that are into the National Infrastructure Program, information on the effects and consequences for the communities in two ways. Make it available, which means it has to be in a simple, clear, understandable way, and the other one is to make it binding for the decision making. Because in Mexico we have this intersectoral commission for climate change, which is composed of many ministries that are supposed to be aligned. So that's what the law says, and so there's a commission, but it actually doesn't quite work for the decision making. So the idea is, on the climate change law, is how to bring information to those decision makers outside the environmental sector for them to take it into account into the policies to really try to accomplish transversal, transsectoral, the transsectoral scope. So we are trying to not only just to gather the information and make it available, but also to push for the agencies to have to take into consideration this information in their policy making. So we are sort of trying to tackle the two ends of the problem. And yeah, we hope we can make it. And just since I have the mic, real quick, there's another issue that, according to this alignment of international agendas, in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have been negotiating for the last 4 years. We are trying to an agreement on for guaranteeing the access to information, participation, and justice on environmental matters. It's an agreement that is hosted with a technical secretariat in the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is a process that we want the world to know. We have 23 countries in the region. We want you to support it, to know it, and for some regions, if it is an example as well, Mexico should be leading this effort, not yet, but we're going to convince them. We should be, because Mexico has a lot of things to teach to the region in terms of access to information, for example, and many things to learn from other countries in the region in access to justice, so to speak. So, yes, your question, it's the articulation of agendas. It's a great excuse for everyone. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Thomas. This is why I love OGP when we have on-stage advocacy taking place. Our final two speakers then, and so please begin thinking of your very brief questions or comments that will come to the audience. First, I'm going to turn to Pak Yanwa and then to Jairo. Yanwa, you are obviously, and one of the hidden stories of OGP, I don't know if people know this, but OGP points of contact were actually coordinating during the SDG negotiations, particularly around Goal 16, when there was some pushback from other countries. And I don't think a lot of people know that story, but that's an example of where the OGP community had an impact in an international negotiation. I'm not going to ask you to share the secrets of what happened then, but perhaps looking forward from your position at the heart of government, what do you think the next steps will be for Indonesia?
Thank you, Joe. Well, to me it feels just like yesterday that I was still sitting in the negotiation room in the UN and negotiating those 169 targets. But I think now it's clear that the negotiation is over. What we need to do now is to implement it. If you ask me what's the secret, there was no secret. What we had was an open, I would say, yes, you have heard perhaps the rumors that the House was split into two, of those who wanted the Goal 16 and those who didn't want to have Goal 16. But then I think when it comes into the real call of the government, that it is about delivering service to the public, to their citizens, I think people start to make some sense. And I think I agree with Manish earlier, that it's not only about Goal 16, but about but about all other goals. In Indonesia, our mortality rate is, by the end of MDG, was 359 per 100,000 live births. It means with around 5 to 6 million new births every year. 17,000 mothers die every year. If you do not know the magnitude of this number, imagine of a Boeing 777 full of mothers crash every week. That is the rate of maternal mortality. The call for the government, and I think this is why OGP is important, is we need to have evidence in order to come up with more informed, evidence-based policy. This is, Joe, I think, why it is important from where I sit now. I was a negotiator, and then now I'm appointed to be Deputy Chief of Staff in the Office of the President, and the biggest challenge for my colleagues, my government, is having this evidence-based policy making. And I think it is delusional to say that the government can do everything on its own. No, it's impossible. The challenge of the government of the world now is far too complex. We need to cooperate with academia, with work together with civil society, with private sector, with everyone. And I agree this is why the term partnerships come into play. And it is important, I think, now, in order to implement this, we need to have a meaningful partnership. So, rather than telling you more stories, because there's no secret, but second, the challenge is now with OGP, I think it is pushing for more evidence-based policy making. I think it's important, and this kind of event is meaningful to have exchange and how people really translate these global goals into national and subnational. I will stop here and then we can have the discussion.
Thanks, Pak Yomar. Then, Jairo, obviously UNDP has a global mandate on the SDGs, and I know you've been leading a lot of work around actual monitoring and indicators. You've had a lot of kind of across the goals, general ideas and examples, but on this particular component, it maybe be useful to hear from you around the work you're doing on that.
Great. Thank you, Joe. I know that I have 3 minutes. I have 3 points, 1 minute each. So, hopefully, we'll be within the time frame. The first thing is that, let me start by me spelling some myths about the SDGs. Right, the SDGs are not new. OGP is not new. The concepts are not new. Right? What we are talking about, and hopefully, this discussion will be about, is, I agree with Manish, is the how. We move that process of, open government, of responsiveness and inclusiveness. And the second myth is that the SDGs are a technical response to development problems. Jan-Marc just highlighted the negotiations was a highly political process, and the SDGs is 17 goals, 169 targets, and 231 are all indicators, are all the results of a political negotiation, and it's a political process. So when we come to the how, basically we are going to the core of the political settlement at the national level. How the politics distributes resources, allocates rents, and distributes benefits. There will be winners and losers. How do we make this more integrated? And part of that politics is that we need to be very careful. Sometimes, in the short term, openness might be in the detriment of effectiveness. Right? I know that this is controversial, right? But then, what the agenda tries to do is try to bring the responsiveness, and this is what Goal 16 brings about. The responsive elements and the inclusiveness elements. Second point, Joe, is and in UNDP we had 170 country offices, right? We have a very large mandate, but by no means, we can say, and Joe, let me correct you, we don't have the monopoly on the SDGs, and we don't pretend, to have that mandate. We have a role to play, and this is why, we have been, an active multilateral partner of the OGP, because we think, the two agendas match and complement, perfectly. Let me just give you an example, and this pilot process on the measurement aspects, that is crucial. What is it that we are trying to do? Basically, what we are trying to do is to work in 6-7 countries that OGP Uruguay, El Salvador, Mexico, Georgia, Indonesia, South Africa, and Tunisia, right? They're all OGP members, they all have action plans, but now how do we integrate those agendas? How do we align those agendas? And it's not for the government to align their agendas to the OGP or to the SDGs, but the other way around. All the 7 countries have national development plans, right? And how then, this agenda helps them. With what? With the indicator process. Goal 16 has 10 targets, 2 means of implementation, 23 indicators. We know that there are different tiers, 6 of them are conceptually clear and can be measured.